Home Life. It's Home Plus Life Podcast.
Quick and simple and straight to the point.
Yeah, 9 seconds.
Good.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you know.
Intros shouldn't be rabbit holes.
Look, I disagree, but we're always going to disagree on that. I love
We
a good
are.
intro, particularly one that's kind of 90s rock, grunge rock themed. I'll listen to that forever.
Is it though?
Do you know what I discovered through the week?
I don't know, because there's many things that you discover that you tell me every single day.
A website that uses artificial intelligence to create an entire song for you based off a prompt. Now, they're only about 45 seconds in length, but you can give it a prompt and it pumps it, writes the lyrics, does the music, the whole works. Tell it what style you want, everything like that. And it just, yeah.
Cool.
I had some fun with that. I might.
I wonder if it's as good as what they say it is.
Well, I tested it out.
The only reason why I say this is because we went down the path of having the AI generate us recipes.
Yeah, that was a little off.
A little bit is an understatement.
Yeah, we couldn't drink any of that gin. But so you remember how for Tom's birthday, I had a song made for him based off his favourite Offspring song.
Yes.
Right, and it was about him. It was kind of like a bit of a satirical thing and all the rest of it. So I used him as the test guinea pig or the theme for this particular AI music creation bot. Not that any of this got anything to do with real estate, just rabbit hole. And it did all right. I reckon it was about 85-90% as good as the stuff that I actually paid to be created by actual artists. So it was pretty close. And being that we're still in the early iteration of AI, I reckon we're not far off getting it pretty damn spot on.
I don't know about that one. I am yeah.
I get it. You should have a listen. I'll play it for you later.
I am very much of the opinion that there is just, I don't know, there's something about actually having real life blood, sweat and tears put into something instead of just shoving it into a computer and spitting it out.
Look, there absolutely is, and I'll agree with you on that. And I think that certain things like whiskies and bourbons and gins and everything like that will continue to be a artisanal master product. I think AI is going to influence those industries less. I think it will still, but it'll influence it less. But I also think that in a world that's as busy and as, nuts as what ours is today, that being able to get 85-90% of the level done in seconds is a worthwhile trade-off. And for cents on the dollar.
Look, at the same time, I suppose it would help with people who are having creative blocks.
Oh, massively.
Can help. However, still being able to have that connection to your feelings as a writer is something that is required in order to be able to put in information into an AI, because otherwise you got nothing still.
Yeah, and that's where AI can be a great ghostwriter, I think, and things like that. But yeah. Anyway, this is not an AI podcast. It was just random.
Absolutely
just
not.
random.
But I'm not surprised that you brought up AI, because that is your thing at the moment.
Oh, I'm loving it. AI is changing my life.
So to the real estate side of things, I'm guessing by looking at this piece of paper and by the very brief outline that you gave me,
we've had no outline.
This is literally like a do you stay or do you go?
Yeah, kind of like I figure let's have a chat about the
when
things
it comes
that
to building pest and body corporate
the issues you see in a property.
Sort of
What are the issues that are real deal breakers, right?
Yep.
Like, and it's just going to be my opinion. Look, I'm not a builder. I'm a former real estate agent. I work in real estate technology these days. But I've bought houses, I've sold houses. You have too. I've looked at countless.
Not as a real estate agent,
houses.
I have to point that out.
Yeah, I've bought them personally and sold them as a real estate agent.
Yeah.
And I've also sold them as a homeowner.
Yes.
Using a real estate agent to do it. And look, I think there's a common kind of thing and question that pops up at the moment. And I think it's our generation. I think it's the millennial generation that's leading the charge with it, because we're kind of not going to our parents for the advice anywhere near as much. And we're asking these questions and we're asking them on public forums.
I think it's also because we know a lot of... I think it's...
I think the world has changed, so our parents'
We are
advice
using
is
all
well
of the
intentioned.
resources available
Yes.
to us, and not just what our parents and what their friends tell us.
And the thing is too, like what their parents and friends tell us often has a lot of merit in it, but doesn't quite nail it purely because the world has changed so much.
Yes,
and I
that's
think
right.
that that's, so I'm seeing a lot more of it. Like, and to be honest, one of the sources for us finding topics to talk about is Reddit.
Yeah.
Right. And there's a lot of people jumping on and talking about and going to others who are, more well-versed than what they are and asking for help on certain topics. And I thought the topic for today should actually be, as you say, should I stay or should I go? So the things that you uncover when you're looking at a property, considering buying a property, and you're doing your due diligence, what are the deal breakers and what are the things that you can potentially fix?
The thing for me that, not just from what I have experienced of where we were previously living, where we were previously renting, but even prior to that, was water damage. Any type of water damage, whether it be a leaking roof, whether it be leaky shower, toilet leaking, whatever it is, that has always been a major flag, because let's face it, water is not something that you can really honestly control apart from if it's installed properly. And yes, things over time do wear down, which is
That's natural. That's normal.
natural. But if you can see that you've had something that has been recently renovated or something that just has never been addressed, those are normally the times that I would be going, what the hell is going on here?
There's a lot of sneaky jobs that get done to make it look like it's fixed.
I'm aware of that.
And I think, that factors in. But look, before we jump into this, of course, podcast brought to you by checkmyhouseprice.com.au and .co.nz. Hopefully sometime soon by .com as well. The best thing is always make sure you're fully informed. It's the whole reason we started the podcast, was to break through all the BS and the hype and the crap that's out there.
Yeah.
And of course, the Check My House Price free house price report helps you do that better than just about anything else. It's accurate. We use real humans to do the report, so there's no computers, no AI involved. And the reason behind that, by the way, is because AI is only as good as the data that it has in its database and its training. And often that data can be 3 to 6 months old. And we all witnessed it through COVID. We witnessed it after COVID. We've witnessed it this year. The market changes a huge amount in 3 months.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, that's
and
seasons.
the people, the devices, whatever you want to call it, those that know the most about your local property market are those working in your local property market. Yeah. They've got the up-to-the-minute information. And so we use them to create the free house price reports. And look, what is it you always love to say? Knowledge is power.
Mm-hmm.
Knowledge is power. Get yourself a free house price report from checkmyhouseprice.com.au, .co.nz, and get out there and make sure that you're making the best property decisions for yourself.
Yes.
I've just noticed there's a little bit of rust or something.
Okay, let's focus back to what we're actually
it's right
here
in my
for.
eye line. It's annoying. All right, I'm good.
Anyway,
it's not rust. It was, I don't know, something.
Yeah, for me personally, I find water damage a huge thing. Even if it is only minor, I would still definitely go, ugh. But how minor? Like, it may be minor that I can see, and that doesn't mean that that's what is happening in the background.
And that's where the building and pest is so important, and you make sure, like, there are devices where they can scan inside walls now, and they can see how far that dampness goes. And we had that happen at our previous property. They scanned inside the walls, they found a whole lot of dampness and everything like that. And there's other issues to look for, right? Like, mold is a huge sign of damp.
Well, also, water actually rots wood. So it doesn't mean that there's termites. It doesn't mean that there's mold. It can mean that the wood is rotting.
Yes.
Just because of being damp.
Yes.
So if it hasn't been treated properly, if it has no way of, ventilation or anything like that, then yes, of course, there's going to be the possibility, which means that if it's in a wall and you've got wood that's rotting, that's not good.
No.
That wall can fall down.
Well, and
your roof can fall in.
There's some extreme examples, but let's talk.
Can happen.
Let's go back. So for me, I'm with you. Like, severe severe damp, severe water damage, if I can't ascertain quickly and effectively through some sort of scan that the issue has been rectified and rectified properly.
Or easily fixed. And when I mean easily fixed, that you get a plumber out and he does his magic and there's no more water.
So an example of...
Sorry, I just saw the postie ride down towards our front
he's
door.
dropping something off the front door. An example of something, if I knew this information, I'm about to give the details as to how they fixed a water issue that became a mold issue in our previous residence.
I feel that it was already a mold issue.
I think it was a mold issue before we moved in. And if I had this kind of information, this is something that would make me run a mile.
Yeah.
I would run a mile.
I'm pretty sure that if you go and rent it back out again, knowing that there's damage like that, and they complain of the same thing again, isn't there a liability thing?
Look,
that can
I'm
happen?
not a lawyer. I'm not going to answer that question on a podcast. I would, look.
And in the comment section, go your hardest.
Yeah. But I think the new owners of that property, right? Because it was fixed up before it got sold to the new owners. Only just, but they are under the belief that it's fixed.
Yes, but the property building and pest actually came out while the wall was off and saw it.
Exactly. So
they can't really go, oh, we had no idea.
No, but they believe it's been fixed. So what happened is, I believe it was a loose O-ring or a worn O-ring or washer inside the wall in the plumbing for the shower. And that had started leaking, but it had been leaking for some time. And
sometime to the point where I had accidentally hit, when vacuuming, had accidentally hit the bottom part of the the door frame into the ensuite from the master bedroom, and some wood fell off. And I was like,
it was rotted.
Oh, that's not
rotted.
good.
Yeah.
You could see that it was starting to
But not only that, there'd been a problem before that we didn't understand. We didn't know what it was at the time, and we obviously learned the hard way. And you remember, like, I thought it was like a bug infestation or something like that in the walk-in robe, how all the carpet, it looked like mud. Like, I thought ants had got in and built up the mud.
I thought there was chocolates that were on your side of...
Yeah, you thought...
And I thought it was chocolate that had melted.
That was a foolish thing to think, because there's no way that I would forget I'd stash chocolates and not eat them.
Well, I'm sorry, dude. There was like 4 or 5 of them that...
I just got duded by my fiance.
Yeah, because... Yeah...
No.
There was 4 or 5 chocolates that actually fell out of a bag.
Where? When?
That's the reason why I was like, there's chocolate on the carpet.
No, not that incident. There was no chocolate there. It looked like chocolate, but it wasn't chocolate. What it ended up being...
I was cleaning off the freaking wardrobe.
No, I was the one who discovered it.
I know what fell out of that.
I know. I was the one that discovered it. Because it ruined one of my bags, because I was pulling stuff out looking for my duffel.
There was chocolates.
No, there was no chocolates. Anyway... The chocolates don't survive long enough to get stashed in this house. That's
the reason why I was surprised.
And I think you're confusing it. But nonetheless, it did look like chocolate, and it was muddy. It looked like mud, like kind of mud chocolate type color and even texture. And we were like, what the hell's going on here?
Yeah, and then you could see the watermark, and it eventually got worse and worse and worse.
Yeah.
And the carpet, it was actually, the carpet wasn't wet to touch, but you could see that the ring was starting
and
to
it was
come
underneath,
out.
and so there was all this sort of rot and this mold that was coming out of the
had
carpet.
also
And
said
we
to
cleaned
you,
that up.
I had also said to you, this doesn't make sense, because I went and mopped the floor in the bathroom, and the tiles around near the toilet were all wet, but it had happened earlier in the day that I had mopped.
Yep.
But the tiles over near the actual shower itself, and also where you walked into the ensuite, were dry. So, and even some of the tiles, and I didn't mop the floor in the shower, but you had a shower, and some of the tiles in the shower were also dry. So I was going, how on earth is there still...
There was so much moisture in that
but
ensuite.
it was coming out from the wall.
And that's what we ascertained.
It wasn't coming from the toilet into the wall. It was the wall to the toilet, or the wall to the drain of the of the shower. It didn't make sense as to why.
Anyway, we then discover through the rotting of the door frame and skirting and stuff like that there's been this leak. There's a whole lot of mold in the walls. Like, I'm talking probably the bottom foot of, so if you look at the frame, they removed part of the wall. They moved a massive part of the wall, and the bottom support that runs along, connected to the cement and connects two uprights in the frame, and at least a foot up of those two uprights that we could see.
I reckon it was
maybe
higher.
Maybe a foot and a half. Like, it was black.
Yeah.
The timber was black, so it was either completely rotted or it was covered in mold.
Yeah.
Either
way, it wasn't good. It was not good.
Then very similar in the walk-in road where we'd had that issue and everything. And the fix that got put in play was they
sprayed it with exit mold, and then they got fumigation to come in.
Yeah, they got fumigation to do like a professional proper spray inside it, patched it back up, and that was it.
Yeah.
And we were told 95% chance it's all gone. It's all.
We're going to go and get the air conditioners all cleaned, and even the air conditioner guy
we did
out,
that. We got them done.
Cleaned it, said this is next level.
Yeah. And
this is as though it
hasn't been cleaned in 15 years.
It hasn't been cleaned. That the mold that was in it was excessive.
Yeah.
Given the fact that he even asked us, do you have windows open? Do you have the fan
all
on?
That sort of stuff.
All of that sort of stuff.
So looking at that,
and he was even flabbergasted at the fact that there was so much mold in the aircon.
So looking at that, knowing what I now know and having watched that process, and as we moved out, there was that mold evidence starting to come back in the carpet in the walk-in road. And we'd reported multiple times, it's still not fixed, etc., and kept getting fobbed off and told it was. If I saw that in the carpet,
after this experience, anytime I see anything like literally
running a mile,
red flags
that's a
would
deal
be
breaker.
Saying
because it affected our health too. But so to give you an idea of what we're talking about, it's if you see kind of almost like bubbling in the carpet, like you can see the carpet start to lift, and it's kind of almost like it's got like a water line. if water comes in under a door, for example,
you get a watermark on your shirt or whatever, you can actually see it.
Right. Anything like that, or it starts to brown and get that sort of chocolatey, moldy coating on the top in the carpet. I'm like, to fix that, and I know this. I have
can
relative
also be
confidence.
A sign of ants, but on the other side, the flip side of that.
Yeah, but this is muddy, not sandy. Like it's not grainy. Like because ants did come through in a different part of the house at one point, right? Which we have been told just happens. But they built their little, like they were using dirt. It wasn't mud.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't that slick sort of mud that looked like melted chocolate kind of deal. But, I called the real estate at the time and said, this is not done. It's not good enough. Like this is affecting our health. You had huge allergy issues, the whole works. And he said, well, look, you got two choices. You can either accept that this is fixed, or you're out of this property because we've got to completely tear down the bathroom and rebuild it. And then you can't be in the property for that. Right, so we were kind of between a rock and a hard place.
Which doesn't actually give me faith that it was actually fixed.
No,
if that was the option.
If that was the option.
Accept it or move.
And so that is why severe damp, any evidence of that severe damp, mold, water that's coming out from walls and things like that, anything that suggests a seal's broken or that, more importantly, like you can reseal and for the most part fix the majority of the problem, open up the walls and, check and all that sort of stuff. Like you can get pinhole cameras to go in and check and see how bad the mold issue is. And if it's not, reseal everything. Yep, cool. You need to reseal everything every 15, 20 years or something anyway, right? But if you've got that creeping mold and it's coming out from that containment area that's a monumental red flag. And look, you might look at, for us, we're going, that's red flag. We don't want to borrow that. You might look at it and go, cool, this $800,000 house, I'm now only going to offer them $750 because I know I'm going to have to spend $15,000 replacing the ensuite.
At least, because
right?
you're going to have
Maybe
to
20.
completely, rip everything out. Then you're going to have to seal everything back up again to ensure that it's all good.
Yeah, it's a complete, like that one was a
gutting.
complete gut and rebuild. I think in order to fix that.
Yeah.
And to be confident that it was fixed.
Yeah. And.
So yeah, any water damage or dampness where it's clearly not been fixed, like you definitely check and investigate further. But if it's just a nightmare, I
The
think.
next one that you have here is termites and damage.
Termite damage, yeah.
Yeah, so, well, you can have damage from termites and they're no longer there,
Yep.
or you can have termites that are still living there.
Yes.
Yes. So, for me, I would be having a look to see as to whether there is, like, known breakouts within that area. I
Yeah.
would research that, and that information is easily accessible.
Yeah.
Because normally the media's done something about it.
Oh,
Normally uptake of somewhere where
Yeah,
you can go, and
but I mean,
I'm pretty sure
it's
there is
fairly obvious too.
Yeah, and I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure that even with your building and pest, if they're a local building and pest to the area,
They'll know.
They would be
know.
able to tell you
They'll know.
anyway. It all depends. For me, it all depends. If it's, like it hasn't got into the house, it's like retaining wall, which isn't something that is actually keeping the backyard together, if that makes sense. It's
Yeah.
just a retaining wall to make a uplifted bed, like garden bed. I would look at it and go, like, we can always rip that out. We can completely, like, is it that big a deal?
Where are they? Are they still active? How much
Yes.
damage do they do?
Yeah.
These, and look, you can
If
always
it's in the
you can
house, I would be going, ooh.
if they're active in the house, then yeah, you're absolutely. If they're no longer active, go and look at, have there been repairs done? Were there repairs needed?
Yeah.
What was the extent of the damage? I like termites are not always a deal breaker for me.
Yeah.
Active termites that are doing significant damage are,
Oh, bloody oath.
but pre-existing termite damage that has been repaired and there's no active termites there, there's a termite barrier in place, like that's not going to worry me as much. I'm going to do a couple extra checks and I'm going to chat to the building and pest guy and ask him a few extra questions on that to
Yeah.
get his opinion or her opinion to make sure that, like, because they've seen this.
Yeah.
And so they'll be able to go, look, to be perfectly honest with you, it could cause a problem down the line. It'll cost you this to fix.
Yeah.
And you just take that into account.
Yeah.
I think. Termites in the backyard, even active termites in the backyard, they don't bother me so much.
No, well, they're
particularly,
out
like-
in their own natural environment. That's
Yeah,
fine. If
yeah.
there's big, huge trees around, then obviously you want to find out if they're actually in the trees, if there's any,
Overhanging into the house. Is there any access to the house?
Yes.
What is in the house to protect you from that? And that's a big thing. I think that
because garden beds and
Yeah,
even sheds, like my thing that if they start doing the whole they're at the stairs, like if there's external stairs, I would be going, oh, that's a little bit too close to home.
yeah, and look, but
Especially
if
stairs.
they're at the stairs, if they're at the external stairs, or they're at external uprights, and I know in Queensland, I'm not sure about other states, but in Queensland, any pole that is an upright holding up the outside of the house or connected to the outside of the house generally is actually lifted up off the ground and is in a metal bracket
Yeah,
for the most part. Some of the older houses, not so much, but check those.
yeah.
Look for them.
And also
look for little
fences
mud
too.
tunnels, like, because if a termite has gone up that
My
bracket,
foot's going dead.
if a termite has gone up that bracket to get into that timber, termites don't like sunlight, so they're going to create little mud tunnels, almost like
Yeah.
debris tunnels. You're going to be able to see that
Yeah.
in that regard. So that's always a good sign to look. Ants make similar ones too. Kick it open, have a look.
Yeah.
Kick it open, have a look, and check
well,
it out.
the other thing too is fences.
Yeah, fences, because fences can be costly.
Yeah.
It's almost worth becoming a fencer, like the amount that they charge.
But at the same time, like find out, go and talk to potential new neighbours.
Yeah,
Find out if they would be interested in, if you did buy the house, whether they would be interested in going halvesies, if
Yeah.
that was the case. Find out from them, because they may have been at the point with the current owners where they're just like, I just want to redo the fence. Like,
Yeah.
this is not okay. But knew that they were selling, so they were like, well, what's the point? You just don't know. So obviously talk to, plus it's a great way to
meet your neighbours. Yeah,
potential neighbours.
yeah,
So cracks in the plaster, absolutely. And the reason why I say this is because I did, back in high school, I dated a guy whose dad owned an underpinning company.
yeah.
And
Was he potentially one of the ones responsible for underpinning the old part of Raby Bay that was starting to sink?
no,
No?
he did do a couple of houses in there,
Yep.
because obviously once it got to that point, that yes, there was money there, clearly.
Oh, yeah.
But the other reason too is when one of the first houses that I moved into was owned by one of the people that I was living with, their brother or brothers. And that we couldn't use the front door. That was pretty much what was holding the front of the house up.
Oh, dear. Oh, boy.
So,
that doesn't sound like that was an inhabitable house.
So then occasionally you would be able to open up the side door, depending on the weather. So, yeah, when they went to sell, because I was like, look at those cracks. Like, maybe there needs to be underpinning. And they were like, oh, no, like, it's just an old house, like, you know, blah, blah, blah. I was like, oh, okay. And then it wasn't until they went to sell the house that they were like, oh, look, like, it's just, like, we've ended up having to knock off, get ready for this, 75,000. This is like 12 years ago. Even longer than that, had to knock off 75,000 from the asking price because of the extent of the damage. And literally, so it went lounge room, kitchen, and then like a tiny little dining area and laundry. And then there was the first bedroom, and then it went into the bedrooms and the bathroom, right? So the lounge area and the kitchen were literally breaking away from the rest of the house.
Yeah, okay.
So they had to go. They had to go in and underpin all of that front of the house.
Yeah.
So
actually, that was like that. Remember that place we looked at down in Tassie? It was on in Gravelly Beach, and it was that big, beautiful two-story brick house, but the flooring of it was shot to shit.
Yeah.
And you were going to have to underpin all, like the whole kitchen, the whole first floor was basically going to need to be underpinned.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, that was going to be nuts.
Yeah. But so yes, when it comes to cracks in plaster, but at the same time, just because there is cracks in plaster, or even it is totally normal to have cracks in bricks.
Yes.
Like in the cement. That's
settling,
totally fine.
Right? There's settling cracks, there's settling plaster.
But
cracks in
what
plaster
is the
and stuff.
issue is if you can see daylight coming through.
I think that was an obvious one. I think that's a red flag for most people who are not planning to tear it down and rebuild. But, I mean, again, this is where building and pest guys are so good.
Yes.
Right? And look, don't get me wrong, building and pest guys, there was a period there, and I don't know if it's still the case. It's been a while since I've ordered a building and pest report. But I remember back sort of 10 years ago, actually, it's closer to 14. Yeah, I'm losing track of time. But the insurance was so hefty for a building and pest guy that they just covered their backside every which way they possibly could. So even the slightest thing, they'd be like, you need to hire a structural engineer to have a look at this. I don't know if that's still the case, but if you get a good one who knows what they're talking about, is not so worried about the insurance aspect, they'll tell you straight and say, hey, look, that's just settling. I wouldn't be worried about that.
Yeah.
Or, hey, that's something to be concerned about.
The other thing...
And this is where a good building and pest guy is worth...
their weight in gold.
They're worth... I mean, they always say the profit is in the buying of the house. Like, how good you buy determines the profit you're going to make later down the line, right? Or a large part of it. And the building and pest guy is a quintessential part for that, because there's the maintenance costs and the ongoing costs and the repair costs and renovation costs and all of that sort of stuff that these guys can make you aware of or save you.
So where I grew up, next door was this beautiful old man, John Farrer, very well known here in the Redlands, because he was an old builder.
Yeah.
One of those ones that could walk into a home and just go, that's off. And you're like, no, it looks pretty flat. And then it's not until you run your hand on it, you're like, ooh, okay, yeah, that is...
How'd you pick that, John?
How'd you get that? He has since passed on. He's left this world. But the amount of builders and sparkies and plasterers and concreters and that I know that had actually used him to come out and check their stuff, right? And that's who you should get, right? I would say, oh, who do you use? And they were like, oh, John. And I'm like, John who? And they're like, John Farrer. And I was like, oh, he's I've known him since I was little.
Yeah.
And
that's the guy you want, right?
Yeah.
Like that's...
Well, he was building and pest. Like, he had a pest chick that came over from Coochie. And they were a team, like it was
Yep,
just a given,
yep.
right? He would just be like, yeah, you can bring your own, but I've got mine, and I'll bring her with me even if you decide to bring someone else, just
Yep.
because he was like, no, I know that she's got the goods,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
that's who I'm going to stick with.
Yeah, yeah.
And he had, it was so weird, he had a golf stick with a golf ball.
Yeah.
The head of it had been taken off.
Yeah, this is standard
Yeah.
equipment for a BNP guy.
So he went around his tapping stuff, right? And funny thing, they tried to trick him. His family was just like, oh, just, because he couldn't find it.
Yep.
It had gone AWOL. He couldn't find it. And they were like, here, just use this one. And he comes back and he was like, no, it's not the same. Didn't give me the right reading. No, don't like it. So he hunted high and low to find this other one, because whatever this other particular one had, even though it was
the perfect sound.
literally
Yeah.
exactly the same.
Every building in Pesca I've ever seen has one of those. They
But
walk
one
because they're
thing-
tapping, they're listening for.
But one thing that I do have to say is ask what their experience is.
Yeah.
Find out not only
Yeah.
how long that they've been doing this for, but what were they doing prior.
And the other thing too is ask what their relation to the home seller is.
Yeah.
So my last couple of sales in real estate before I ended up full time, check my
Were they
house
like
price.
dads and uncles and...
So I had this BNP guy who shall remain unnamed, and he was terrified of his insurance, shall we say.
Yeah.
And so his BNP reports would come back with the most terrifying but insurance-safe language
Yeah.
that you could even imagine, right? There was one particular house that I sold in Logan Home, and it was a single-story, 3-bed, 1-bath, solid brick.
Yeah.
Whole house was solid brick. And this guy I had to sell it 3 times because this guy came out for the first 2 as the BNP for the first 2. And he had the buyers convinced that it was going to blow over in a gentle breeze.
I thought everything had to be cyclone proof here in Queensland.
Well, this is it, right?
Like, not
don't
just
get me
in
wrong,
North-
there was a
North
carport
Queensland,
attached, and the carport was old and it needed replacing.
Yeah.
But he had them convinced the whole house, like this double brick whole house, was going to blow over.
It was
right?
going to
Tomorrow.
become Dorothy's home.
And we finally get this. The third buyer comes in. And they bring their own BNP guy, and he goes through and he says, yeah, look, the carport's a problem. You're going to want to replace that. Just be aware of it. And they go, does that affect the house? He turns, no, this is a single-story double brick. This is so solid, you could build a second story on it tomorrow and it wouldn't have an issue, right?
Yeah.
Because it was double brick and the foundations were set right. It was built in the 80s like it was that kind of home.
And those one, I'm pretty sure that's what
Now-
they brought through, the cyclone proof.
Absolutely.
It had to be
Yep,
cyclone
double
proof.
brick.
Otherwise,
So-
it did not pass.
So the other house that I was selling at the same time,
Had the same dude.
it was his sister's property.
And it went through with flying colours.
And hold up, let me just read the rap sheet on this.
Right.
In the bathroom, they'd affixed one of those 3-in-1 IXL, the fan, light, heat.
Yeah.
Right? But because of the way the beams were in the ceiling, they couldn't fit this IXL in the ceiling.
Yeah.
Right? Because the back of the IXL, it's obviously got the fan and it's got all bits
Yeah.
and pieces.
So they didn't do measurements and they just shoved it in there.
Yeah, so they cut a rectangle out of the beam, right? One of these beams running up to the roof cross section.
Because what could possibly go wrong?
One of the angled struts or whatever you want to call it, right? To fit this thing in there, to fit in. In the backyard under the patio, they had built a raised platform to create their own sort of little day bed, dais, patio thing like this out of MDF and then painted it black, right? MDF. And I'm talking, it was swelling. None of this council approved, none of anything. Yet this guy's crashing contracts, but his sister's getting away with murder doing all this sort of stuff.
I'm surprised that he didn't go, what the hell are you doing? Oh my God.
The word I may have been told on the quiet that he did the work.
Oh, Jesus.
Yep.
Yeah, see, and that's the reason why I'm
Yep.
saying find out
So-
how long they've been
yeah.
in the game and what were they doing prior.
Don't ask for, like when you're talking to your tradie mates and things like that, don't ask for who they recommend as a BNP guy. Ask them who they use on their own when they're purchasing a property.
Look, quite honestly, I can tell you right now that here in the Redlands, when John was still with us, that It was just, if you like, trust me, there were some people that I did know where John was like, I don't work with them. Like, he just flat out refused. Just because they had tried to tell him that he needed to sign off on it, blah blah blah, and he was just like,
No, not going to do it.
not
going
going
to
to happen.
Yep.
So to the point where down at Raby Bay, where there is units, where the marina, beautiful restaurants and everything, he refused to go there
Yeah, wow.
because he was just like, that thing's going to fall, and there's 3 stories of residents above him.
Oh, dear.
Yes.
Yep. No.
So that's the reason why when you've got someone like that going,
You stay clear.
yeah, until you know that it's fixed,
Yep.
no.
Yep.
So talking about that, cracks in concrete.
Look, cracks in concrete, and again, it comes down to
How old
could
the
be
property
settling,
is.
how old's the property. I think the big thing you want to look for is concrete cancer.
Yeah.
Which is that kind of, it looks like a little bit of bubbling that's popped and rotting, rough, like it's starting to decay.
It is also when you have like bits of steel coming through.
Yeah, when
as
you
well.
start to see that as well.
And it starts to look really, really rusted.
Yeah.
So if you've got, say, for example, there's a ramp and you've got steel like bolted into it, if it can see that there's bubbling and not so good stuff happening around it, and there's rust within those bolts,
that's a big red flag.
That is a big red flag that there's an issue.
It depends, right? It depends.
Because it crumbles?
Is this connected to, like, where that bolt's going in? Is it part of a structural part of the house, or is it something that is like a feature that you don't care, you could remove and not care?
Yeah.
Right. And it's
well, I
important.
mean, if it's got a railing.
It's got a railing,
and
that's
it's
important,
let's
right?
say it's a ramp going with a railing, and you sort of like, that's access into the front of the property. You don't really want that happening.
No, you don't. But I'm just saying, look at it and go, is it structurally significant, or is it like something that can be removed and nobody cares?
Yeah.
But absolutely get your B&P guy to check that out. Like, this is something you do an inspection yourself. And like, you look for mold, the same way you look for mold, you look for any evidence of water damage, you look for,
And cracks in concrete on foundations isn't normally a super bad thing.
Look, I'm not going to offer an opinion on that. I'll let the building pest, but I'd say you ask the question, right? Let the expert answer it for you.
If there's something going from the floor straight up a wall and along the ceiling, then absolutely you could be
some
going,
serious problems there.
Should I be in this house?
Yeah.
Should I be viewing this house?
Are we about to fall down? So, yeah. But, I mean, look, and I know a lot of our stuff comes back to ask the B&P guy as to how severe it is. Because a lot of these things, there are cracks in concrete that occur from settling and age and stuff like that that are not structural. They're not a problem. There are also cracks in concrete that are structural that are a problem. The same as in bricks and mortar, there are cracks and things like that aren't a problem, and then there are ones that are. So that's where you've got to have the expert.
Yeah.
And the expert will tell you just how concerned you need to be.
Yeah.
A good one will anyway.
Yeah.
And look, if you're looking at going, I'm going to renovate this place anyway, it may not be an issue for you, but if you're looking at going, I'm going to bulldoze the whole damn thing, so I just want the block of land, it may not be an issue for you. If you're going,
may not.
This is my first home and I need it to stay standing for 20 years and I'm eventually going to rent it out and all that kind of stuff, then, hey, you need to factor in the cost of this because it's going to cause repair.
The other one that you don't have on here?
What's that one?
For me, is asbestos.
Oh, asbestos is huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
actually, there's another one that's akin to asbestos too, which is a methamphetamine test.
Yes.
So asbestos and methamphetamine kind of fall into the same category for me, even though they technically don't. But in my head, the way my head, sorts stuff.
It's still chemicals that aren't good for your body.
Yeah, exactly. And so you can do, so you want to do these tests because a methamphetamine reading over a certain amount, I can't remember what the amount is, and we should have Steve on because he used to do cleaning of houses that had the rating. And the testing kits are cheap. Like, you can get a $20 testing kit and do the test yourself. But methamphetamine in the walls can have significant effect. And it's not... I'm not talking like people have got little crystals in the walls. What I'm talking about, someone smoked it in the house and it's soaked into the walls and into the plaster. That can have significant health effects. There's rashes.
You can, and even if you don't have asthma.
Yeah, you can end up with asthma, brain issues, the whole works.
What I'm saying here is that you don't have
Clarity
to have
issues.
asthma.
No.
You can be a healthy person that walks in there and your body just goes, "No, this environment's not good," and has reactions that you've never had before, where you're just going, "This doesn't make any sense."
Yeah, and I think that's a big one to take into account. At the same time, like, we know asbestos, we know about asbestos, we've known about it for a long time now. There's a lot of like B&P guys look to see and to check for it. They also check the condition of it.
The other thing too that they do ask you is, are you intending on doing any renovations?
Yeah.
Because if you are, then absolutely. But if you're going to be using it as an investment property where you're literally, someone is going to move in there, live, you're just going to hold on to it and sell it in 5 years. That's it. That's the extent of the life of it.
To be honest with you, if it had asbestos, I'd be seriously reconsidering, purely because
the other one is lead paint.
The declaration, like, you've still got to say, yes, there's asbestos on this property, right? And that is such a huge issue and has such risks attached to it. It degrades the value of the property, in my opinion, straight off the bat. Lead paint's not as big an issue as it once was, because we haven't had lead paint in circulation for so long.
That's because a lot of people have just painted straight over the top of it.
Oh, God. Maybe lead paint's going to become an issue. So ask the building and pest guy about that one.
Ask the building and pest. And the reason why I say this is because my sister lived in a property that not only had asbestos, but ended up finding out that there was lead in some of the paint that was on the roof.
Flaking off the ceiling into their coffee.
Flaking off the roof.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's that too. And yeah, look, I think definitely, methamphetamine testing.
Yeah.
I think, I don't know if a seller's going to allow that as part of a condition of offer. I don't know if building and pest guys...
swiping of walls. Like,
it is, but I don't know if building and pest guys do it as yet as part of their stuff. But to be honest, like, I think it is... There's been enough hype in the media that I think sooner or later in the next 5 to 10 years, it's going to become common practice.
Well, I think the other thing too is the fact that, well, I mean, if you're needing to go and fumigate and clean and all the rest of it, someone turning around going, I have to do a full-on thorough clean because this house actually flags up, and not just a little bit. Like, it's recommending that I should go and get a professional team to come in.
We should probably get Steve in on a podcast to talk about what he's seen and experienced with that, because I know that he was... for a time, he was helping out his former father-in-law, who runs a methamphetamine testing and cleaning company, and for houses. And so Steve was just helping him out as he was getting off the ground and getting started. And so he obviously learned a lot about it, and he might be able to share some of his experiences on that. So we might ask the question.
So there is a fair few things that would actually have us running. Well, put your own in the comments. We would like to hear them. Tell us even your own experiences.
There's a lot here that
you run.
Wouldn't necessarily make me run, but would definitely make me ask some questions.
I would say damp.
Severe damp that hasn't been repaired. Yep.
Asbestos is just
asbestos.
I'm just not even going down
methamphetamine
that path.
Over a certain level.
And plaster, because normally if there is plaster starting to crack, and you can see that there's a long, long line of the crack, then I would be questioning the concrete and the brick as well.
The plaster would get me asking a question, but if the B&P guy went, mate, that's just settling, I'd be like, yeah, cool, no worries. It wouldn't bother me in the slightest. Same as the concrete and the bricks. And we talked about termites and that. The severe damp that hasn't been fixed. Because if it hasn't been fixed, you don't know the extent. And so it doesn't matter what renegotiation you do.
Have a look around where you've got the skirting and the bottom part of the wall that the skirting is attached to.
Yeah, if the paint's starting to bubble up, there's suggestion.
If it looks like a pillow, if it looks like it's like...
starting to pillow, bubble, get air under it,
whatever.
It's quite often water damage.
You can tell that it looks like, if you go like this and it bounces back, where you sort of go, no, that should be a flush bit of plaster there, not something pillowing out from it. Then there's something going on there that's not quite right.
Yep, absolutely. So hopefully that's been insight. I mean, look, these are just our opinions and our thoughts and how we'd go about it. As always, rely on the professionals. Yeah. But these are just some of the things to look out for. But as always, rely on the professionals and make sure you find a good one. You know, if you feel hinky, if you don't have a good feeling, if you feel something's off or they're spinning shit, then find one that you feel comfortable with.
Yeah.
Is probably the best way to go. That's
what I would think.
Yep, absolutely. So hopefully it's been valuable.
All right. So on that note, peace out, peeps.